According to a newspaper report, the consequences of Brexit are exacerbating the shortage of medicines in Great Britain. Congratulations. According to a study, leaving the EU is a factor in delivery problems. The consequences of Brexit, such as greater bureaucratic effort, are apparently exacerbating the shortage of medicines in Great Britain. And the drug shortage is worse than ever. That's what the independent newspaper quoted several health experts as saying. An analysis concludes that Britain's exit from the EU is a key factor for serious delivery problems. Britain's NHS is being forced to pay excessive prices to import some medicines, as the report said. And among other things, vital antibiotics, hormone replacement therapy, and medications for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or ADHD, as well as antidepressants and medications for high blood pressure, are affected. Despite a trade agreement between Great Britain and the EU, trading costs for medicines have also increased since Brexit due to complex customs declarations and other regulations. Since then, some British regulatory processes for medicines are no longer valid in the EU, and this makes collaboration more difficult. Because of their short shelf life, pharmacists cannot store large stocks of those affected medicines. Britain's exit from the European Union has also made it more difficult for pharmacies to obtain drugs. This is because the UK is no longer part of the EU single market and the customs union, which means that there are now additional tariffs and paperwork required to import drugs from the EU. And there are a few reasons why Britain's exit from the EU has made it more difficult for pharmacies to obtain drugs in the first place. And I talked about the increased paperwork and bureaucracy. The UK is no longer part of the EU single market and customs union, which means that there are now additional tariffs and paperwork required to import drugs from the EU. And this has made it more time-consuming and expensive for pharmacies to obtain drugs. And it has also led to delays in the delivery of drugs. Then there's a disruption of supply chains. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused significant disruptions to global supply chains, and this has also had an impact on the supply of drugs to the UK. The UK is particularly reliant on import of drugs from the EU, and the disruptions to supply chains have made it more difficult for pharmacies to obtain the drugs they need. And then there's the reduced availability of generic drugs. The UK is also a major producer of generic drugs, but the Brexit vote has led to uncertainty about the future of the UK's generic drug industry. And this has made it more difficult for pharmacies to obtain generic drugs, which are often cheaper than brand name drugs. As a result of these factors, there have been a number of shortages of essential drugs in the UK in recent years, and now they are getting worse. And this has had a significant impact on patients who have struggled to access the medicines they need. The British government has taken some steps to address the drug shortages, such as increasing funding for the NHS a little bit and streamlining the process for importing drugs. However, it's likely to take some time for these measures to have any impact. And in the meantime, patients are urged to contact their GP or pharmacist if they are having difficulty obtaining the medicines they need. The severity of medicine shortages in Britain caused by Brexit is a matter of ongoing debate. While there is no consensus on the extent to which Brexit has contributed to the shortages, there is evidence to suggest that it has played a key role. A 22 report by the Nuffield Trust, that's a health think tank, found that the UK's medicine shortage crisis has worsened since Brexit. And the report found that medicine imports from the EU, which had historically made up 2/3 of NHS supply, had crashed to their lowest level in years. It also found that the UK had become more reliant on imports from other countries, which were more likely to be disrupted by supply chain issues I mentioned earlier. And the Pharmaceutical Journal, a trade publication for pharmacists, has also reported on the impact of Brexit on medicine shortages. In a 22 article, the journal noted that the UK's exit from the EU had led to increased bureaucracy and delays in the movement of medicines across borders. The article also quoted a pharmacist who said that Brexit had made it more difficult to get the medicines they need. And while there is evidence to suggest that Brexit has played a key role in the UK's medicine shortage crisis, it is clear to note that there are other factors that have also contributed to the problem. But as I said with the title, Brexit exacerbates everything. But of course, COVID-19 has caused significant disruptions to the global supply chains, and an aging population, which has led to an increase in demand for medicines, plays a role as well. But overall, Brexit has played a key role in the UK's medicine shortage crisis, and we will still see how severe the impact will be. But the situation is likely to remain complex and fluid for some time to come. And there are, of course, also negative consequences of Brexit for the UK as a whole, aside from drug shortages. The UK's trade with the EU has fallen significantly since Brexit, and this is due to a number of factors, including the introduction of some tariffs and other barriers to trade, the devaluation of the pound sterling, and the increased uncertainty caused by Brexit. The fall in trade has had a negative impact on the UK's economy, leading to job losses and reduced investment. And Brexit had created a great deal of uncertainty for businesses and investors. And this uncertainty has made it difficult for businesses to plan for the future and has indeed led to a decline in investment in the UK. And the uncertainty has also had a negative impact on consumer confidence, which has led to a slowdown in consumer spending. And the UK has seen a significant decline in immigration from the EU since Brexit. And this is due to the fact that EU citizens no longer have the automatic right to live and work in the UK. The decline in immigration has had a negative impact on the UK economy, as it has led to a shortage of skilled workers in a number of sectors. And the cost of living in the UK has also increased significantly since Brexit. And this is due to a number of factors, including the devaluation of the pound sterling, the increased costs of imports, and the introduction of new taxes. And the increase in the cost of living has had a particularly negative impact on low-income households. Brexit has also damaged the UK's reputation on the international stage. The UK is now seen as a less reliable and predictable partner, and this has made it more difficult for the UK to negotiate trade deals and cooperate with other countries. And overall, Brexit has had a number of negative consequences for the UK. And the consequences are likely to be felt for many years to come, and they will get worse. In addition to what I said, Brexit has also a number of negative consequences for specific sectors of the UK economy, such as the financial services sector, the manufacturing sector, and the retail sector. And if you want to know more right now, the next video is right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.